Hi guys, it's me Terri of the Yarnjoy podcast. Welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to make Mrs. Claus's Christmas ornament. It goes along with the set of the Santa that we made a few days ago. Okay, this is a Yarnspirations pattern. And stay tuned and we will get started on it, and I'll let you know what materials that you're going to need, and so then we can get started. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so for our Mrs. Claus ornament, we are going to need some color for the her skin, and I'm using the same color that I used for Santa. It is, I think it's a Vanna's Choice in the colorway Fisherman. Okay, I'm using all worsted weight yarns. Okay, so I'm going to need some of that for her head, for the skin color, and then for her hair, I'm going to use this white, and it's just Red Heart Super Saver in white. Okay, and then that's mainly it as far as the colors. You do need just a little bit of this black, just a pretty good long strand, not real long, but anyway, it's just for her eyes, and then a little bit of red for her mouth. Okay, and then also you're gonna need either a little thin red ribbon, or you could just use some more red yarn to tie around her bun on the top of her head. Okay, and you can also use it as a hanging string also. And that's it. Okay, and as far as hook size, I'm using a F hook, which is a 3.75 millimeter hook, and it's the same hook I used, same hook size that I used for the Santa ornament. And of course, you're going to need some fiberfill stuffing for stuffing the head. Okay, and a yarn needle to sew in your ends, and some scissors, and you're also going to need a stitch marker. Gotta get it. Here it is. Okay, stitch marker. Okay, and I think that's it. So that's all you need. So let's get started. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with the head, and the head is made exactly with the same instructions as the head that I made for the Santa Claus ornaments, the same instructions. So I'm going to insert right here the footage that I did when I made the Santa head, and just follow that. In fact, you're going to be using the same color, the Fisherman, and so, well, that's the one I used. And so anyway, I'm going to insert that clip right here, and you can follow that to get your head made. Okay. Okay, so it says with the main color, chain 2. Okay, so I'm going to attach my yarn onto my hook with a slip knot. Okay, and now I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. And so for the first round, it says 6 single crochets into that second chain from the hook. Okay, so I'm going to do 6 single crochets right into that second chain. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm just going to work around the circle. So now that I've done 3 of them, I need to do 3 more. So then now I'm going to work over this beginning tail. 4, 5, and 6. Oops. Okay, you can pull on this beginning tail a little bit to tighten up that circle. Okay, and then let's see, it does say that we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet, so let's do that. We insert our hook into the first single crochet of the round and just do a slip stitch. Oops, have to do that again. Slip stitch. Okay, there you go. Okay, so that was round 1. Now I'm going to chain 1 and go on to round 2. For round 2, it says to do an increase in each stitch around, which means doing 2 single crochets in each stitch around. Right now we have a stitch count of 6. When we get finished with round 2, we will have a stitch count of 12. So going right into that first single crochet, I'm going to put 2 single crochets into that first stitch. Okay, 1 and 2. Then I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to put a marker in the first of those 2 single crochets that we just made, okay, just to mark the beginning of my round, okay. And now I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around, and at the end of round 2 we will have 12 single crochets for our count, our stitch count, okay. So I'm going to finish doing that and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I've just got back to the marker. I now have 12 single crochets around my circle. Going on to, and it does say we're going to join, in this pattern we're going to join with the slip stitch at the end to join our rounds with each round, okay? So I'm going to take my marker out and I'm going to slip stitch into that first single crochet of the round to join my round, okay? Okay, so round 3 we're going to chain 1, and then it says we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, okay? So in this first stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Place our marker in the first of those 2 stitches that we just made. Okay, so in that first stitch we did 2 single crochets, the next stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet, okay? And then that's our sequence. The next stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and then the next stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet, okay? So repeat that sequence all the way around and I will meet you when we get back to the marker. Okay, I've just finished round 3. I'm going to remove my marker and I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch to join my round, okay? And so now at the end of round 3 you should have a stitch count of 18 stitches all the way around your circle, okay? Going on to round 4, we're going to chain 1 and then we're going to do 2 single crochets into that first single crochet, okay, of the round, 2 of them. We're going to put our marker in the first of those 2 single crochets that we just made. Okay, and then going on with our sequence for this round, we did 2 single crochets in the first stitch. Now I'm going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 in the next stitch and then 1 in the next stitch. Okay, so that's our sequence. Let me pull out some more yarn. That's our sequence for this round. We're going to do 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. So 1 in the next stitch and 1 in the next stitch, okay? So repeat that sequence all the way around and I will meet you when we get back to the marker. Okay, so I just got back to the marker again, and that is the end of round 4. At the end of round 4 you should have 24 stitches all the way around your circle. I'm going to take out my marker and I'm going to join my round by slip stitching into that stitch where the marker was, which was the first stitch of that round, okay? Okay, on to round 5. We're going to chain 1 and then we're going to do 2 single crochets in that first stitch, so 1 and 2, okay? We're going to pick up our marker and we're going to put it back into the first stitch of those 2 that we just made, okay? Okay, going on with our sequence for this round, we did 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches. So 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch. And that is our sequence for this round, okay? We're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3, okay? So follow that sequence all the way around and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I just got back to the marker and that was the end of round 5. So at the end of round 5 we should have 30 stitches around our circle now, okay? So now I'm going to take out my marker and I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch to finish off my round, okay? Chain 1 and then let's go on to round 6. Round 6 we're going to chain 1 and then all we're going to do is just do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, okay? So let's do that. So we're going to do single crochet in our first stitch, just 1 stitch, okay? We're not going to increase anymore. We're going to keep our stitch count at 30, okay? So I'm going to put my marker in my first stitch just to mark the beginning of that round, and now I'm just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I just finished round 6 and I still have 30 stitches all the way around my circle, and as you can see my piece is trying to curl up like a bowl, and so at this point I want to make sure that I fold that down, because the surface that you're looking at is the right side of your work, and so we want that on the outside of our head, or the side that you're going to see. Okay, so just go ahead and if it was curling up like a bowl, then go ahead and fold it out, so then it's going to be like the top of a ball. Okay. Okay, so that was the end of round 6. We still have 30 stitches all the way around. I'm going to remove my marker and slip stitch into that first stitch to finish off my round. Okay, and now in the instructions it says that we're going to repeat that last round number 6. We're going to repeat it with just 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, not increasing or decreasing our stitch count, and we're going to repeat that 6 more times. Okay, because we're just growing our head, the head there. Okay, or making it bigger. Okay, so go ahead and do that. You're going to chain 1 and then you're going to single crochet into that first stitch, so that way you can put your marker in there. Okay, and then repeat the last round. We're going to do that 6 times, so that would be rounds 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so do that 1 stitch in each stitch around, and just move your marker each time to the first stitch of each additional round, and we're going to do that, and I will meet you back when I get to the end of round 12. Okay. Okay, so I just finished round 12 and I removed my marker. Now I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch of the round to join my round. Okay, so going on to round 13, I'm going to chain 1, and then now I'm going to start doing my decreases. The pattern says to do 2 single crochet 2 together for our decrease, but I like, when I'm doing amigurumi or anything that's stuffed, I like to do an invisible decrease instead. So that's what I'm going to do. So to do an invisible decrease, we're going to take our hook and go under the front loop only of the first stitch, and then kind of twist our hook around, and we're going to go under the front loop only of the next stitch as well, and then we're going to make our single crochet. Okay, so that is my invisible decrease, and that is also the first stitch in that round. So I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to put that into that first stitch, or that invisible decrease that we just made. Okay. Okay, so now going on to for this sequence, we're going to single crochet 1 time in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's our sequence for this round. We're going to do an invisible decrease, so around under the front loops only of the next 2 stitches, like that together, and then do our single crochet. Okay, so that's our invisible decrease, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so do that sequence all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I just finished round 13. I now have a stitch count. Instead of 30, we now have a stitch count of 24 stitches all the way around our circle. Okay, so going on to round 14, I'm going to remove my marker, slip stitch into that first single crochet there to join our round, chain 1, and then go on to the instructions, and it says to do a decrease stitch, or I'm going to be doing the invisible decrease stitch in the first 2 stitches, over the first 2 stitches. So I'm doing it the same way I just showed you a while ago. Okay, so that's our invisible decrease, and that's also the first stitch of that round, so I'm going to put my marker in there. Okay, and now I'm going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Okay, and that's our sequence for this round. So we're going to do an invisible decrease over the next 2 stitches, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. See that? Okay, so repeat that sequence all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I'm at the end of that round, and we went down from a stitch count of 24. We should have a stitch count of 18 stitches around our circle, okay? Okay, so going on to the next round of decreases, I'm going to do a invisible decrease over the first 2 stitches. And then I'm going to put my marker in there in that stitch we just made, because that's the first stitch of the round. And now I'm just going to single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so that's our sequence. We're going to do an invisible decrease in the next over the next 2 stitches. Okay, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so repeat that sequence all the way around, and I'll meet you back when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I just finished that round. We now have a round count of 12 single crochets around our circle. Okay, a stitch count. Okay, now we're going to, before going any further, we're going to pull up our yarn a little bit and take our hook out, and then we're going to stuff our head. Okay, just take small pieces at a time and stuff our head. And we want to stuff it pretty firmly. Okay, so I got my head stuffed, and we can always put in a little bit more stuffing right at the top as we're closing up in this next round, okay, if we feel like there's not enough stuffing in there. So we're going to remove our marker, slip stitch into that first stitch to fasten off that previous round, okay. Chain 1, and now since we have 12 stitches around our circle, we're going to do an invisible decrease all the way around with no single crochets in between them, okay? And so that will bring our stitch count down from 12 down to 6, okay? So we're just doing an invisible decrease, and you can either put your marker into that first stitch, or you can just count, because you're going to do 6 of them, okay? So there's 1, doing invisible decreases, 2, 3, 4, okay, and so I've done 4. I think maybe I want to put just a tad more stuffing in there. Okay, and now continuing with the invisible decreases, I did 4 of them. So 5 is the next one right here. That's, whoops, 5, okay, and then 1 more. 6, okay. Okay, so now let's finish off our head. And it just says to fasten off, okay? So I'm going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch to fasten off that round, okay? And now I'm going to cut just a very small amount of yarn. We don't need a lot, because we're not going to be using this for sewing. We're just going to be weaving it in. So now I'm going to pull up on my yarn, since I did a slip stitch, and I'm just going to pull it all the way through, okay? Now I'm going to take my yarn needle and put this tail onto the needle, and then I'm going to go around the circle in the front loops only. So the next stitch I'm going to do from the front to the back, okay? And then the next stitch I'm going to do from the back, the inside to the outside, front loops only, and I'm going to alternate that all the way around. So this one I'm going to do from the front to the back, or the outside to the inside, see? And the next one I'm going to do from the inside to the outside, okay? And I'll do that all the way around. Okay, and then you're going to pull on it and see it draws it up. It closes it up, see that? Okay, and just kind of mold our head there. And then we're going to take this yarn tail and we're just going to pull it to the inside of the head. Maybe go 2 different directions. Okay, just like that. And then you can take your yarn needle next to where the yarn tail came out, and then just kind of pull that like that. Pull it from the inside, and that will bring that yarn tail in. If you have any more sticking out, you can always trim it. Okay. So there's our head. Okay, so we got the head made, and everything fastened off and stuffed, and so now we're ready to go on with the rest of Mrs. Claus. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is her hair, and it's like a hair cap that's going to fit over the top of the head. So we're going to take our white yarn, and we're going to start with a magic circle. Okay, you can also chain 2 and work in the second chain from the hook, but I'm going to go ahead and make a magic circle or a magic ring. Okay, and into that ring we're going to do 6 single crochets. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and now I'm going to pull on my beginning tail to tighten up my circle. Okay, and I'm going to join my round by inserting my hook into the first single crochet of that round and just do a slip stitch. Okay, so that is the end of round 1. In the end of round 1 you should have 6 stitches around your circle. Okay. Okay, going on to round 2, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around. Okay, so going right, chain 1. Now we're going to insert our hook into that same stitch that we slip stitched into, and I'm going to make 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Okay, and now I'm going to take my marker, and I'm going to put my marker into the first of those 2 single crochets that I just made, okay, to mark the first of our round. And so in each stitch around remaining, I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each of those stitches all the way around until I get to the marker. And so when I get to the marker, I will meet you back there. Okay, so I just got back to the marker. That's the end of round 2, and at the end of round 2, we will have 12 single crochets all the way around your circle. Okay, so now I'm going to take out my marker. So now I'm going to take out my marker and slip stitch into the first stitch of that round, and that will finish off the round. Okay, now I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to go on to round 3. In round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets into the first stitch, and then 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and that's our sequence that we will do all the way around. Okay, so into that same stitch that we slip stitched into to join, I'm going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Okay, picking up my marker, I'm going to put it in the first of those 2 single crochets that I just made. Okay, and now into the next single crochet, I'm going to put just 1 single crochet. Okay, and that's our sequence. So 2 single crochets into the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, and so repeat that sequence all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I'm back to the marker again, and now you should have 18 stitches all the way around your circle. I'm going to take out my marker, and I'm going to join this round by doing a slip stitch into the first stitch where your marker was. Okay, that's the end of round 3. Going on to round 4, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that stitch that we slip stitched into. So 1 and 2 in that same stitch. Put my marker in the first of those 2 single crochets that I just made, and now I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch and 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and that's our sequence. Okay, so we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then in the next 2 stitches we're going to put 1 single crochet each. Okay, so 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so that we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I'm at the end of round 4, and at the end of round 4 you should have 24 stitches around your circle now. I'm going to take my marker out, and I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch of the round where the marker was. I'll do a slip stitch to join my round, and I'm going to chain 1. Going on to round 5, I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that first stitch, the one we slip stitched into, okay, 1 and 2. Take my marker and put it in the first of the 2 stitches that we just made. And going on, we're going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and that's our sequence for this round. So we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 3 stitches, 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, and that's our sequence. So we're going to repeat that all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, I've got back to the marker, and now you should have a stitch count of 30 stitches all the way around your circle. Okay, so I'm going to take my marker out, slip stitch into that first stitch where the marker was to join my round. Okay, and now I'm going to go on to the rest of the hair. And it says for the next 3 rounds I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So I'm going to chain 1 to start my round, and I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch. So there's my first one, and I'm going to put my marker in there to mark the beginning of the round. And then I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around my circle. No more increasing or decreasing, okay? And we're going to do that for three rounds. And so that will be for round 6, round 7, and round 8. And so keep doing that. And so at the end of round 8, I will meet you back up, and then we will go on to the last part of the hair instructions. Okay, so 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around for 3 rounds. Okay, so I got back to the marker. I just did 3 rounds of 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So let's go on to the last round of the hair. So I'm going to take out my marker so then I can slip stitch into that stitch to join my round, and I'm going to chain 1. And then going on to the last round, it says to do 4 double crochets in the next single crochet. Okay, so yarn over, insert our hook into the very next stitch, and I'm going to do 4 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, all in the same stitch, 3, and 4. Okay, and now I'm going to put my marker into the first stitch of those 4 double crochets that I made. Okay. Okay, going on, it says we're going to skip the next stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Okay, and then we're going to skip the next stitch and then do 4 double crochets again. Okay, so we're going to skip the next stitch, and we're going to do 4 double crochets into the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then we're going to skip the next stitch, put a slip stitch into the next one. Okay, and then skip the next stitch, and then do 4 double crochets again into that, all in that one stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so you're going to keep doing that. You're going to skip, you're going to do every other stitch all the way around. You're going to do the next one that we're going to do, we're going to skip the next stitch and do a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then skip the next stitch and then do 4 double crochets in the next stitch. And so that's our sequence. So we're going to do that all the way around, and I will meet you when we get back to the marker. Okay, so I've finished that round. I got back to the marker, and all I have to do now is I ended with 4 double crochets into that stitch, the last stitch, and then so I'm going to take my marker out, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch into the same single crochet that we joined from the last round, and that will end off our round. Okay. Okay, so that is the end of our little hair cap. So now we're ready to cut our yarn. And go ahead and leave a pretty long tail because we will use this to sew the hair cap onto the head, okay? So I already did a slip stitch when we connected the round, so all I have to do is just pull that yarn out, pull my hook out, pulling the yarn through, okay? And so there is our hair cap that's going to be fitting on top of the head, okay? Just like that. That looks like a cupcake, doesn't it, with icing. Okay, so let's go on to the next part of Mrs. Claus's head, or her hair, and we need to do her little bun, okay? So, keeping with the white yarn, we are going to now join our yarn onto our hook with a slip knot, okay? And then we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, okay? And then it says we're going to do 6 single crochets into the second chain from the hook, okay? So we're going to do 6 single crochets in there. 1, 2, 3, okay? And I need to do 3 more, so now I'm going to work over this beginning tail. 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so there's our 6 single crochets. You can pull on that beginning tail a little bit to tighten that up, okay? And then going on, we're going to join with a slip stitch into the first of those 6 single crochets that we made to finish off our round, okay? And now going on to round 2, we're going to chain up 1, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around. So into this first stitch, I'm going to put 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. And then I'm going to get my marker and put it in the first of those 2 single crochets that I just made. And now in each stitch all the way around, I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch, okay? And I will meet you up when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I'm at the end of round 2, and I have a stitch count now of 12 stitches around my circle. I'm going to take my marker out, and I'm going to slip stitch into that stitch where the marker was to join my round, okay? And now I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to go on to round 3. And round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets into the first stitch, 1 and 2. And then I'm going to put my marker back in there, and I'm going to put it in the first stitch of those 2 that I just made, okay? And now I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch, okay? And that's our sequence. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet into the next stitch, okay? And I'm going to repeat that sequence all the way around my circle, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so that is the end of round 3, and at the end of round 3 you should have 18 stitches around your circle, okay? Going on to rounds 4, 5, and 6, for the next 3 rounds we are going to just do 1 stitch in each stitch all the way around, okay? Because we're building height on the her bun. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a slip stitch into that first stitch where I have my marker to join the round. Chain 1 and then single crochet into that stitch, okay? And then I'm going to mark that stitch because that's the beginning of my round. And then I'm just going to do 1 stitch in each, 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and I'm going to do that for 3 rounds, and I will still have 18 stitches around my circle at the end of those 3 rounds. So let me work on that. I'm going to do rounds 4, 5, and 6, and then I will meet you up when I get finished with 6 and am at the marker again. Okay, so I just finished round 6 doing my 3 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and I'm going to take out my marker and slip stitch into that first stitch to finish off my round, to join the round, okay? And that is the end of the instructions for the bun. And so I'm going to fasten off, but I do want to leave a fairly long tail because I'm going to sew the bun onto the top of the hair cap, okay? So I already did a slip stitch, so all I'm going to do is just pull my yarn out like that, pull it to snug it down, okay? And now I'm going to take my hair cap And so this bun is going to go right centered over the center, you know, the round one of the hair cap. See that? Like that. And so I'm just going to go stitch right down through to the bottom all the way around, and then before I close it off, I want to go ahead and put some fiber fill in there to fill up that little bun. Okay, so I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to put the tail, yarn this tail from my bun onto my yarn needle, and then I'm going to take my hair cap and place the bun on the top, centered over that beginning round, and I'm just going to go right into the top of the hair cap. Okay, and then I'm just going to go in and out through the hair cap and the edge stitches of the bun, and secure that on. And like I said, when I get where it's almost I'm almost around to the beginning, then I will, right before I close it up, I'm going to stuff it. So let me go ahead and get these stitched on, and right before I am going to stuff it, I will come back and we'll put the stuffing in. Okay. Okay, so I'm just about to close this up, and I'm going to go ahead and get some fiber fill, and I'm going to fill the little bun. Don't need a whole lot, just to fill that little bun. Okay, and now I'm going to continue my stitching and close it up. And then when I get it closed up, I'm going to turn it to the inside, and this beginning tail that I used, that I had when I did the hair, I'm just going to tie the ends together in a knot. Okay, so let me get finished sewing this up, and then we will go on to the next part. Okay, so I got my bun sewed on. Now let's go ahead and sew the hair to the onto the top of the head. So taking the yarn tail from my hair cap, I'm going to thread my needle with that. Okay, now I'm going to place the yarn cap onto the top of the head. And I want to put the back seam, line the back seam up with the back seam on the head, so that would be in the back. Okay, and then I'm just going to stitch in and out and stitch down this hair cap onto the head. Okay, just like that. Make sure you catch you go into the head as well when you're stitching that on there. Just like that. And then just work your way around, making those stitches, tacking it down to the head. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to make my way around the circle until I get to where I started at, making sure it's all tacked down to the head, and then I will meet you up when we go on to the next step. Okay, so I finished sewing the hair cap to the head, and then I already fastened off. I just inserted my yarn. When I got all the way around, then I inserted my needle into the head, and I came out across the other side, and then I just snipped off my yarn, my scissors close to the, snipped off the yarn close to the head, and then made sure the yarn tail wasn't sticking out. Okay, so there is our Mrs. Claus head so far. Okay. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and put on her eyes and her smile. So we're going to take a length of just maybe 12 inches maybe or so of black yarn. This is a sport weight yarn, so that way it's a little finer. And then I'm going to yarn up my needle with that. Okay. And then finding the back seam. It's not that noticeable, which is a good thing. So there's the back. So then I want to put that in the back. This is where I want to put the eyes. So I'm going to insert my hook from the side, but not my hook, insert my needle from the side going into one of the stitch holes, so that way you won't be able to see it. I'll be able to hide it inside the head. And so I want to come out where I want the eyes to be. Just kind of refer to the picture on where you want the eyes. Okay. There. Just like that. And looking at the picture, looks like they're about 3 to 4 stitches apart. And so I'm going to get my eye stitched in there. Let's see. I think I'm going to go down and then do about 3 stitches going through the same holes for the eye. Like that. If you do about 3 stitches or so, it'll help to make the eye fuller and a little more rounder. Of course, you could use safety eyes, but since I stitched on the eyes of the Santa, I wanted to do it the same way for Mrs. Claus. Okay, so there's 3. I think I'm going to go ahead and do one more to kind of round off that side, because I don't want her to have angry eyes. And then I'm going to come up where I'm going to want my next eye to be, which would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, over here. Oops, there. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll come back when I get the other eye in. Okay, I'm about to do my last stitch on my eye. So I'm going to insert my hook in there to complete my last stitch. But instead of coming out the same hole to make another stitch, I'm going to come out the side over here. But just make sure you come out a stitch hole. Like that. Okay. Okay. Looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to cut off my yarn, because I'm going to use red for the smile. So just cut it off close to the head, the beginning and the ending tail. Just like that. And then take your yarn needle and you will insert it in close to where that thread is and just kind of wiggle it around, and see you're pulling that yarn away from the surface, so that way you won't see the black yarn. It'll be inside the head like that. Okay, so there is her eyes. Now let's put on her smile. So I'm going to cut a little length of red yarn, and this is also sport weight yarn. You could also use worsted weight yarn and just separate the strands and maybe use half the thickness. Okay, so now for my smile, I want to, I'm just referring to the picture. Looks like it's just the tops of the smile is just 1 stitch below where you put the eyes, but it's toward the inside of the eye. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start on the side and come up in the stitch that I'm wanting to put it. Let's see, 1 stitch down, and then maybe between those 2 stitches like that. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here where the top of my smile is going to be. You can always lay it on there and kind of see if you've got it centered where you're wanting it. I think I need to move it over further, so just pull it all the way through and we'll start again. right there. Okay. And then I think I want to run it to this hole right here. I think that's pretty even. So I go ahead and insert my hook, insert my needle where it's going to go, but then I'm going to come back and come up about the center of the, between those two stitches, about a stitch or so down, a row or so down. Looks like I've got about a row and a half down. And then I'm going to be pulling this tight, but I want it to dip down to make a smile. And so now I'm going to insert my needle underneath that loop. See that? But it's not going through the head. And that's going to pull my smile down. See? And I can always tighten the beginning yarn and then this one I'm working with to get it where I want it. And then you insert your hook on, you insert your needle on the other side. I mean, from the hole that you came out of, okay? And then come out the side somewhere out a stitch hole. Okay, and then just be real slow as far as pulling this through, because you're wanting not to pull it too tight, and so you can adjust the beginning tail and then this one to get the smile to look the way you want it. Okay, there. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to fasten off. You can go back in the hole that you just came out of and run your yarn through some other area just to kind of secure it off, and then you fasten that off. I mean, cut it off close to the head. Do the same thing with the needle that we did with the other to bury the yarn tail in there, and then you're going to do the same thing with this beginning strand and cut that off. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I will come back and we will do the little tie around her bun. Okay, so here is Mrs. Santa or Mrs. Claus, and then I cut a length of yarn, pretty good length. I'm not going to use a ribbon. I don't have a narrow enough ribbon to use that, but I'm going to use just some of the red yarn that I used. And so what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start with the center of my yarn in the front center of her head. Okay, like that. And I'm going to see the tails are at the back. And so I'm going to center those like that. Okay. And then I'm going to put my thumb to hold that in place. And then I'm going to take the yarn tails and I'm going to cross them in the back and then bring them forward. Okay. Like that. So it's like a double. It's a double strand, okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and tie my little bow. So I'm going to tie my little bow here. And you can make the bow however big of a size you want. I'm not the best at tying bows. Another thing you can do is make a double knot on your bow to kind of secure it from falling apart. Like that. Okay. There. Okay. And now I'm going to cut these remaining tails short. Okay. So there is my bow that goes around the little tie around her little bun. Okay. So there is Mrs. Claus. So now all we have to do is make a hanging. I think I'm going to use the white, I guess, maybe to make the hanging loop. Instead of the red, I think I'll just use the white. Okay, so you can either use your needle or your hook, but just go up to the top of the bun, around, you know, where round 1 is, and then secure your tail. Okay, so make it however tall you want or how big you want the loop, and then just tie it in a double knot at the top like that, and clip those ends short. There you go. And you can always pull this pull on it until that knot gets hidden underneath inside her little bun. If the knot doesn't go through, you can always just insert your hook and pull those ends to the inside so you can't see them like that. Like that. Okay. So there is Mrs. Claus. I think she's going to be looking quite snazzy up against Mr. Claus. Look at that. Isn't that cute? I'm glad I made her. I think she is going to be cute. I see that I used red. You could have used red for your hanging string if you wanted to make it the same. Whatever your choice is. But anyway, here is Mr. Claus and Mrs. Claus. So I really think they turned out cute. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and then come back in a few days. I'll try to get the snowman done of this set, the tutorial for that one. I think that one's going to be super cute as well. So thanks guys for watching this tutorial, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!